Hey guys, it's me, Gabriel, your young healer and leader of the Wolfpack, coming to you with that evening spark. So, overcoming sexual temptation. I feel like this is one that's been long in my heart, and I've been meaning to talk about it to give some sense of help. But I think first I needed to, figure it out within myself first, because thing I hate most is getting advice that just don't work. And so, with all this, one thing that you can be sure of is that this advice that I'm giving has been battle tested. And these thoughts presented are genuine in the sense that when I apply them, they give me an empowerment to see things differently, and from that train of thought, I'm able to not see it as the other way with like the whole sexual dynamic. And it's a tough thing to unravel, I think, because there's a lot that's going into it. You know, I think a lot of people that we struggle with it because we don't know where to turn. We try looking for advice. We feel like there's a lot of condemnation out there, especially from the Christian nation. This is kind of an address to the Christian people as a whole, and really anyone, to be honest. I think there's some things to address first and foremost, in that, for some, the concept of sex and things of that nature, it doesn't seem to hold the same moral implications that it would seem to have with people, like myself and others as well. I think there's this constant inner conflict that a lot of us have between wanting to serve God and wanting to satisfy our sexuality. And I think there's that strain. But when we're in that state, we're kind of no good to anybody. As James talks about, that doubt causes us to just be torn apart. And we inevitably we end up going towards the lower level experience than the higher one, because the lower level one seems easier at the time. Even though within ourselves we know, man, I know this isn't good. After we get done, oh man, that wasn't good, And yet we keep going back. But I would say also at the same time, I think, like with any of these things in life, there is a utility to it. Obviously, one, it's paramount. Sex is paramount to our survival. You can't really procreate without that happening, so there is that dynamic. And also, we shouldn't ignore the fact that for some people, their love language is physical touch, which does involve the act of sex and the sexual things. Warning, this is a little bit maybe more mature, but really, I don't think it necessarily is. I think even pretty much once you hit puberty, this is stuff that you're going to grapple with for a good while. I'm 26 and I'm still rocking and rolling with it. It's a journey, let me tell you. But I'm hoping that by me being able to help you with this stuff, it'll help you avoid any mistakes. Now, getting back on topic, I feel like, mortal doctrines should not dictate the manner in which we convey ourselves in a relationship. But by that I mean, sex shouldn't be something that seen to be exclusive only for people who are married. But prior to that, you have to avoid sex altogether, or anything sexual whatsoever, because I feel like that's very, it's very archaic in the sense that, yes, there's doctrines within the Bible that would say you have to wait till marriage till you have sex, because no fornication, sexual immorality, and things like that, and that fornicators will not make it into the kingdom of heaven. But I think we got to look deeper than just, well, if you have sex before marriage, then that's no good. I think there's thought to it, but also you have to consider, like, back then they had polygamy. Back then, men didn't marry their wives for love. Love was an absurd concept up until relatively recent, within the spectrum of the human existence. So to say, this whole romanticized dynamic of love and all this flowery stuff that we've come to know, like, that's recent. And that wasn't how it was in the Bible. So there has to be that perspective involved. And so I feel like that's one of those things where it's like we're looking at stuff that was from back then to determine how things are now. Things aren't how they were back then. I mean, freaking, in the letter to Timothy, it says women shouldn't speak in church. I can guarantee you, not a lot of Christian churches would agree to that. Shoot, my religion was founded by a woman, Mrs. Eddy. So there you go. And other ones have been founded by women as well. Women have held prominent spiritual, religious roles. So to say, otherwise, I don't know. I feel like it's very much so getting caught up in the letter and not the spirit. And the spirit of it all, I would say the spirit of it all is not about the fact that, you shouldn't have sex before marriage, but it's more about putting an emphasis on the body and not on the relationship itself. And what I mean by that is, when you believe yourself to be simply that of a body, it creates a whole mess of things. One, it's entertaining the illusion of the separation, that we are separate bodies, that my spirit is in me, and once I die it leaves the body, kind of things like that. These are old ways of thought that have not led to the spiritualization of our species, of the world. And so with that being said, there's a certain sort of elevating of thought that is needed. Because when you reduce yourself to just a body, life in a lot of ways loses that sense of worth and value. It's all random. It's all meaningless. Just go ahead and go nuts. It's kind of, you don't feel that worth within you because you were meant for so much more. So the things of the body, rarely ever do they satisfy. Because think about it, this world is a world of death. Things decay and die. Nothing lasts. So it's a complete reversal of the world of God, which is eternal and loving. All too often when we engage in those things of the body, do they leave us feeling lacking and wanting, because they stem from a position of the body. I have to seek after. Seek and not find, though. It never satisfies. That's the thing I realize is that, this stuff of the body, it never satisfies. Now, this isn't to say, you have to do away with all things of the body, because we still eat, we still drink water, I go work out, I go to work and all this stuff. I think what it's about, though, is not having your job define you, not having the things of the external, the things of the body define you, but rather allowing your purpose, allowing who you are, your values, to define you, and let those be extensions of yourself. Now, with this, I was going to try and delve into the characteristics of God's teachers and how we can apply those into overcoming sexual temptation. And I think that would be really cool. If you don't know what I'm talking about, we did a 10-part series. You can go watch them. It'll help bring you up to speed. We'd be here for a hot minute if I was talking about all of them or what they all entail. But the point is, I feel like when it comes to this dynamic is that it's about recognizing that these meager gifts of the body do not satisfy the Son of God because they are not worthy of you, in the sense that you are worth so much more. And that's the thing. A big thing to overcome sexual temptation, whether it be fornication, masturbation, pornography, adultery, sexual morality, whatever that may be. I guess like having sex with a goat or something. I don't know. The point is, I guess maybe cheating, but I guess that falls under adultery. Just lust. And again, it's not about necessarily the act itself, but it's about what is behind it. And again, like I was saying, it's about putting an emphasis on the body. A lot of times it comes from a point of deprivation, that from that lack, I need to satisfy that lack because I recognize myself as a body. I believe myself to be a body and not more than that. Because when you feel that you're a body, you're lacking. You're always against the clock, as it were. You're always dying. You have to try to keep striving higher and higher, and it's never good enough. And that's the thing, because it's like this house on the sand. You're always having to build it up, and the wave keeps coming. You have to keep on trying to build it back up, and it never seems to be enough. And it's never going to be enough. That's one of the things you have to like recognize within yourself, that it's never going to be satisfied. This notion that eventually I'll do it enough and it'll be good. No. Like I think, healing through exposure to some extent, yes, there is a dynamic of that can help heal, to help remove the sense of guilt. But I would say it's also the sense of guilt as well, that that guilt is what brings us down a lot. Man, this is going for a hot minute. We may have to do a two-parter. We might have to do part 2 on how to apply the characteristics of God's teachers within all this. So anyways, we'll do that next. And yeah, so that what the heck was I talking about? We were talking about the value and people not valuing themselves. I wish I could rewind right now, but we can't. That's okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it gets we get caught up in thinking ourselves as just a body, and when we don't seek for more, and we always feel a sense of deprivation, and it feels like it's never enough. We don't value ourselves. We constantly find ourselves falling in love with fantasies and ghosts. Ghosts being the sense of relationships gone from years past, and things we wish we could have because we don't feel like we're enough. Here's the thing. When one thing that's really helped me was when I get faced with those things, no, I recognize I matter too. You matter too. What you are, you matter. I have value. I have worth. My worth is not of man. See, what happens is when you put your value into the world, into somebody else, they then determine your value. And they do not. No man can truly value who you are. So don't give it to them. Now, this isn't I don't need nobody to love me, so I can just love myself. Holy God, I hit my elbow on the chair that hurt. Anyways, you don't need any, it gets this kind of isolationist kind of mentality. And that is also not good, because then it causes us to isolate ourselves even more. And we don't rise higher. We get caught up in this sense of isolation. And we lack that sense of generosity. And I'll talk more about that in part 2. But with this, it's about recognizing that because you value yourself, and that you recognize that your worth is not of man but of God, and that God values you more than you could even imagine. Right? I can feel that, and it's that force that makes you recognize just how much you really matter. And that's the essence of what can help give you that strength to see that you don't need to have to go into this. These one-night stands, these things of, self-pleasure, as it were. And you don't have to feel like this is all I'm good enough for. Sometimes that's not how it is for everybody, but I will say that I think that for a lot of us, and for me, what I struggled with was that sense of self-worth. And I think for me, it's been that journey of recognizing one's also self-acceptance. We don't have to necessarily endorse the actions of what we are doing, but we gotta learn to be compassionate to ourselves. See, anger, attack, fear, doubt, all these things, they weaken our resolve. So when you're angry at someone, this is why compassion in actuality is the key to being able to help overcome. It gives you that energy because it helps you be compassionate to yourself. See, the ego is based off of attack. So it wants you to continually attack yourself, because if you're attacking yourself, you're compounding the sense of guilt. Oh my gosh, you did this? How could you? It's so terrible. And yeah, it's just, it doesn't lead to any place good, friends, because we don't heal from that. You may think I need to be hard on myself, and we need to really buckle down. And yeah, you got to get some. And in all honesty, there's a certain sort of seriousness that you have to get in regards to deciding which way you want to go. But I would say that it's not out of hate, it's not out of anger, it's out of love and compassion towards ourselves, and then as such unto others. Because we're all fighting a hard battle, and we all need that love. And I think that's really the heart of it, and recognizing that you don't need to seek after those other people necessarily. You can see that value and let it be extended unto others. We're running out of time, so we're going to end it here for part 1. We're going to come back in a hot minute for part 2. But yeah, stay tuned for next time. Okay, I'll see you guys. See you in a bit.